declares to me in Ephesians 1:11, in whom we also have obtained this inheritance, being predestined. See, I like that word. Pre means before, destined means ended. It means before God ever started me, he had already ended me. You don't really get it. Before he started you, he had already ended you. So why are you worrying about all that stuff that you're worrying about? His name is Alpha and his name is Omega. And the Bible tells me before he ever started me, he had ended me according to the purpose of him who worketh all things after the counsel of his own will. My God, do you understand? Everything you went through was working for the purpose of his own will. You were supposed to have that personality. You were supposed to be the big mouth. You were supposed to, you know what I'm talking about. He was working all things after the counsel of his own will. Gets in you, you stop doing crazy things to try to be accepted by other people. Because you know you've done some crazy things to get somebody to accept you. But it tells you that once you've been predestined and recognize who you are already accepted in the beloved. You are in the clique, baby. He already made you a part of the club. Before he ever started you, he had finished you. And all you went through. One of my staff members came to me yesterday and she was crying and she said, Pastor Paula, I was praying and the Lord said to me, you have all the right ingredients. And when she spoke that, it hit me. That everything I went through was preparing me for what God had purposed and planned in my life. I don't understand how he takes us the course he does, but God has a way, according to Romans 8:28, of taking what the enemy meant for bad in your life and turning around that stumbling block into your stepping stone. God has a way of taking your negatives and making a positive. Slap somebody, say, you don't even have a clue who you're sitting next to right now. And so when God, I've got a long way to go, but I got to get there. When God has promised you something, there is no need to trick. There is no need to manipulate. There's no need to try to fight for it. Because God sovereignly chooses whomsoever he will. He's powerful, not political. And he chooses whoever he will. My God, he will choose a foolish thing to confound the wise. Some of you shouldn't be here today. Some of you shouldn't have been here. Come on, your sister should have been here. But she's strung out on drugs. She's in a miserable marriage right now. You shouldn't have even found his grace. But he sovereignly chooses whosoever he will. It wasn't because you were good. It wasn't because you were educated. It wasn't because the family you were born in. It's because he sovereignly chose you, my God, and set your feet on a solid rock and established your goings. You better give him praise for choosing you. And when God chooses you, you're chosen. When God blesses you, you're blessed. Y'all better be seated. Turn to somebody, say, not till I get mine. And Jacob should not have been blessed. See, you really have to get this in your spirit. He should not have been blessed. He should not have had the birthright. Esau should have had the birthright. And God is very proper when it comes to protocol. He's serious about principles. He does not bless personalities. He blesses principles. So why would he not honor his own principle? Because Jacob should not have principally been the person positioned for what God had promised. Esau should have. So God, you're messing with my mind, but God will bless you out of order. God will mess things up because you've been sovereignly chosen. Yeah. Jacob was blessed out of order. It reminds me of David. David ruled a kingdom that really belonged to Eliab, his elder brother. But God will bless you out of order. It reminds me of Ephraim. Ephraim received a blessing that really belonged to Manasseh. But God will bless you out of order. It reminds me of Joseph. Joseph wore a coat that really belonged to Reuben. But God will bless you out of order. God will mess things up. Somebody slap your neighbor, say, God bless me out of order. And God will mess things up because you're marked. You know he did it. He messed some things up. You know it. You shouldn't be where you are. You know you should have lost your mind. You know you should have been on your 5th marriage. But God will mess things up because you were marked. Slap somebody, say, not till I get mine. See, some of you shouldn't have even been here. I've got 3,000 angry women at me right now because they couldn't get into this conference. We shut it down 2 weeks ago. They want to be sitting in this seat, but God blessed you out of order. God marked you. He blessed you out of order. You're not even supposed to be here. Susie's supposed to be sitting in your seat, but God said, you out of order, pulling this to make it happen, that to make it happen, blessing you out of order. My God, baby, do you understand? Slap somebody, say, I've been blessed. I'm marked. I'm marked. Come on and give him some praise. Come on, if you're going to praise him, you might as well praise him. From the north, pulling it from the south, making some things stop to get you to the place, because God said this is a time for you. I've set it aside because I marked you. I had that seat with your name on it. This is a time for you. Come on. Slap somebody, say, not till I get mine. You better be seated. You're getting God. God's been holding things back. See, that person wants what God has already marked for you. You don't have to worry about the title. You don't have to worry about the position. You don't have to worry about the protocol. God says, what I have for you, it is for you. Don't worry that Saul's in your castle right now because I've anointed you to rule and reign. Don't worry about them driving your car right now, living in your house right now, pastoring your church right now. God says, what I've marked for you, it is for you. Hey! You better be seated. I've got to preach. And although Jacob is promised to rule, he is promised the birthright, the blessing. He took matters in his own hands. And he manipulated what God had mandated. And the problem when you begin to manipulate what God has mandated is what you birth in the flesh, you have to maintain in the flesh. That's the problem with some of your marriages right now. It's in the flesh. That's why you keep going down to Victoria's Secret. And that's why you keep fixing him his favorite meal. But he's still staying out late at night. Because it is not a carnal problem. It is a spiritual problem. And it cannot be resolved by a carnal means. You can lose 32 pounds, put on black lace, get your groove on, come on, do all you want. Cook him his fried chicken, black-eyed peas, and cornbread. And the man's still walking out the house. Because it's not a carnal problem. It's a spiritual problem. And you cannot fix it by manipulating what God has mandated. My God, please help me. That's the problem with some of your ministries right now. Begging people to stay at your church. Let them go. They're hindering you. They're holding you back. Let them go. Anybody that doesn't celebrate you is not worthy of your presence anyway. You go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. Just, and they're stopping reaping the harvest of souls that what God has, but you think you take it as personal rejection, so you can't let them go. But if you don't let them go, you can never grow, because anything that God is going to put fruit on has to be purged. And so you cannot manipulate what God has promised you. You've got to allow God to do it. And God's a sovereign God who does things very slow. A day is as 1,000 with the Lord. You better be seated. So God had promised it, but he took matters in his own hand. And that's the problem. Sometimes we take matters in our own hand. But Psalm 55:22 says, cast thy burden upon the Lord, and he shall sustain thee. In other words, give it over to God, and God will sustain you. He will not suffer the righteous to be moved. Baby, that media can't make me move. When they talk about me, you better hear me. When people laugh at me, it can't make me move, because God says the righteous shall not suffer to be moved. So cast your burden. Give your marriage, give your ministry, give your economic status, give it over to God. He says, give it to me and I'll sustain it. Because when you birth it in the flesh, you have to maintain it in the flesh. So God is calling you to roll it over to him. Turn to somebody and say, not till I get mine.